Arrival in Kashi. Since the poetic moon of Rajarani rose, her house had always been bustling with women. There were many women's societies in the city, and she bore the entire burden of managing them. Additionally, women from other cities would often come to meet her. Whoever came to Kashi for a pilgrimage would always meet Rajarani. King Dharmasinha had published a beautiful collection of her poems. That collection had sounded the trumpet of her poetic brilliance. Not just in India, but poets from Europe and America had expressed their admiration for the enchanting beauty of her poetry. In India, it was hard to find a true connoisseur whose library wasn't adorned with her book. Among those who promoted Virjan's poetry, Balaji held the highest position. In his influential speeches and writings, he often quoted her lines. He once wrote a detailed review of her collection in the magazine, Saraswati. One morning, Sita, Chandrakumari, Rukmini, and Queen Virjan came to her house. Chandra seated these women on the floor and offered them hospitality. Virjan was not there because she had set aside her mornings for poetic contemplation. She would not meet friends during this time unless it was for some urgent matter. There was a beautiful grove in her garden, where fragrant winds blew, infused with the scent of roses. It was there, seated on a stone bench, that Virjan used to compose her poetry. She would string the pearls of poetic thoughts she gathered from the ocean of poetry into the garland of Madhvi's pen. Today, after many days, due to the persistent requests of the townspeople, Virjan had lifted her pen to invite Balaji to come to Kashi. Varanasi was the city whose mere memory occasionally unsettled Balaji. But despite the continuous invitations from the people of Kashi, he had no time to visit. He had travelled as far as Ceylon and Rangoon, but had never turned towards Kashi. He regarded this city as his trial ground. Thus, today Virjan was sending him an invitation to come to Kashi. When people's thoughts crossed her mind, Virjan's moon-like face brightened, but at this moment, the beauty and splendor on these two flowers were making the distant flowers feel shy. By 9 o'clock, Virjan came into the house. Sevati said, "You took quite a long time today." Virjan replied, "How much penance did Kunti have to do to summon the sun?" Sita said, "Balaji is so cruel. I would never speak to such a man." Rukmini added, "What does a person who has renounced the world have to do with home and family?" Chandrakumari chimed in, "When he comes here, I will tell him straight to his face, 'Sir, where did you learn such airs?'" Rukmini said, "Queen, you should at least maintain decorum with sages and seers. What is the tongue but a blade?" Chandrakumari retorted, "Indeed, how long can we remain patient? He goes everywhere but gets tired when it comes to coming here." Virjan, smiling, said, "You will soon have his darshan. I believe he will surely come this month." Sita exclaimed, "What a blessed fortune it would be to see him. Whenever I read about him, I just want to hold his feet and cry for hours." Rukmini said, "God has bestowed great fame upon him." The Queen of Daranagar was on her deathbed, and as soon as Balaji was informed, he rushed there and in just a moment raised her up. Amunshiji, my husband, was there at the time. He said the Queen placed the keys to the treasury at Balaji's feet and said, "You are the master of this." But Balaji said, "I have no need for money. Open 300 cow shelters in your kingdom instead." As soon as he uttered this, today in Daranagar, rivers of milk are flowing. Who could be such a great soul? Chandrakumari added, King Navlakha's tuberculosis was cured by his herbs. All the doctors had given up hope. When Balaji was about to leave, the Queen placed a necklace of pearls worth 9 lakhs at his feet, but Balaji didn't even look at it. Queen said, "How indifferent these men are." Rukmini said, "Yes, indeed. He should have taken the necklace, or at least worn it around his neck." Virjan said, "No, he should have taken it and adorned the Queen with it, don't you think?" Queen said, "Yes, I would have gladly become his servant for that necklace." Chandrakumari said, "My husband is a member of the Bharat Sabha, Indian Assembly. He saved 250 rupees with great effort, and Balaji took it, saying he would buy a horse. Does the Bharat Sabha not function without horses?" Queen said, "Yesterday, these people were marching in ranks in front of my house. They looked quite noble. Just then, Sevati brought in the latest newspaper. Virjan asked, any fresh news? Sevati replied, yes, Balaji has arrived in Manikpur. A Yadav, Ahir, had invited him to his daughter's wedding. So, the members of the Bharat Sabha travelled from Prayag overnight and reached Manikpur. The Ahirs greeted him with great enthusiasm and ceremony, and they collectively gifted him 500 cows. Balaji blessed the bride and embraced the groom. 5 Ahirs were appointed as members of the Bharat Sabha. Virjan said, such good news. Madhavi, cut this out and keep it. Anything else? Safety said, the Parsis of Patna have built a temple, and the Bharat Sabha celebrated the event with great pomp. Virjan said, the people of Patna are working with great zeal. Chandrakumari, with sarcasm, said, now even the basket weavers will start adorning themselves with vermilion. The Parsis are going to build temples? Rukmini said, why? Are they not human? Didn't God create them? Do you only know how to worship your own husband? Chandrakumari responded, come on, don't compare me to the Parsis. I don't like it. Rukmini said, oh, your skin is fair, and you are adorned in fine clothes and jewels, that's all. Is there any other difference? Chandrakumari shot back, is that the only difference? Are you comparing the earth to the sky? I don't like it. I belong to the Kachwaha clan, do you even know what that means? Rukmini said, yes, I know. And if I didn't know before, I know now. Would your Thakur Sahib, your husband, be able to wrestle better than a Parsi? All he knows is how to wear a crooked turban. I bet any little Parsi could pin him under his arm. Virjan intervened, all right, enough of this argument now. You two always start fighting whenever you come together. Sevati said, what a beautiful coincidence between father and son. It seems like Munshi Shaligram renounced the world just for Pratap Chandra. This is all the fruit of his teaching. Rukmini agreed, yes, of course. Munshi Shaligram is now called Swami Brahmanand. He must have recognized Pratap when he saw him. Sevati added, he must have been overjoyed. Rukmini said, it was also God's will, otherwise, why would Pratap Chandra have gone to Manasarovar? Sevati remarked, nothing happens without God's will. Virjan said, you all seem to have forgotten my Lalaji. It was my Lalaji who first met Pratap Chandra in Rishikesh. Pratap stayed with him for a year, and then both of them set off for Manasarovar. Rukmini said, yes, that's what was written in Pranath's essay. Balaji always says that if I hadn't had the fortune of meeting Munshi Sanjeevanlal, I too would have been among the wandering beggar sadhus. Chandrakumari said, for such self-realization, the Creator had already prepared everything in advance. Sevati said, that's why, at such a young age, he has become the son of India. How old is he now, 25? Virjan corrected, no, he's 30. He's a year older than me. Rukmini said, whenever I've seen him, he's always appeared sad. Chandrakumari said, the dew of disappointment has fallen on all his life's desires. Why wouldn't he be sad? Rukmini said, he had prayed for that very boon from the goddess. Chandrakumari asked, so, is it not possible to serve one's community while living a household life? Rukmini said, not just one's community, no service can be done while living a household life. A householder can only serve his own children. Chandrakumari said, those who want to do something can do everything, and those who don't want to do anything will find 100 excuses. Another month passed. Virjan's new poem, bearing a message of welcome, reached Balaji, but it remained unknown whether he accepted the invitation or not. The people of Kashi grew weary of waiting. Every day, Balaji moved further south. Finally, the people gave up hope, and none was more disheartened than Virjan. One day, when no one expected Balaji's arrival, Pranath came and said, sister, rejoice. Balaji is coming today. Virjan, who was writing something, dropped her pen. Madhvi rushed to the door. Pranath, laughing, said, why are you so agitated? He hasn't arrived yet. Madhvi asked eagerly, when will he arrive? Will he come this way? Pranath replied, it's not known which way he'll come. He despises pomp and ceremony, so he didn't set a specific date for his arrival. This morning, a messenger informed the king that Balaji is coming and requested that there be no grand reception. But do you think the people here will listen? A grand welcome will take place. The procession will be so grand that it will be remembered in the city's history. Men are scattered all around. As soon as they spot him, they will inform everyone via telephone. The students of colleges and schools are waiting in uniform, holding flags. Preparations for flower showers are being made at every house. The market shops are being decorated. The entire city is abuzz with excitement. Madhvi said, if he comes this way, we'll stop him. Pranath replied, we haven't made any preparations, how will we stop him? And we don't even know which way he'll come. Varjan, after some thought, said, we should at least arrange for an aarti. Pranath agreed, yes, at least that much can be done. I'll go outside and set up the bedding. Pranath busied himself with the preparations outside, Madhvi started picking flowers, and Virjan cleaned the silver plate for the aarti. Sevati and Chandra began arranging everything inside in an orderly fashion. Madhvi was so overjoyed that she couldn't contain herself. She kept glancing toward the door, jumping at every sound, thinking he might have arrived. She kept straining her ears to hear if the sound of music was approaching. Her heart pounded with joy. While picking flowers, her mind was elsewhere. She pricked her fingers with thorns several times, broke many branches along with the flowers, got tangled in the bushes, and even tore her sari on the thorns. At that moment, she was like a child in her excitement. But Virjan's heart was heavy. Like a vessel filled to the brim with water that spills at the slightest movement, her eyes overflowed with tears as memories of the past flooded her mind. Ah, there was a time when we were like brother and sister, playing and living together. 14 years have passed since then, and I haven't been fortunate enough to see his face. Back then, if I cried even a little, he would wipe my tears and console me. Does he even remember now how many tears these eyes have shed and how much suffering this heart has endured? How could I have known that fate would show us such a scene? One would become a renunciant, and the other a woman longing for reunion. Suddenly, Madhvi remembered that perhaps Suvama had not been informed of Balaji's arrival. She went to Virjan and said, I'm going to aunt's house for a bit. I don't know if anyone has told her. Pranath, overhearing from outside, said, the first notice was given to her. Preparations are well underway, and Balaji will head straight to her house. He won't be coming this way. Virjan said, then we should go. We shouldn't be late. Madhvi asked, shall I bring the aarti plate? Virjan asked, who will carry it? Call the maidservant, startled. Oh, where did the blood on your hands come from? Madhvi said, oh, it's nothing. I was picking flowers, I must have pricked myself with the thorns. Chandra remarked, the sari you just got is already torn to shreds. Madhvi retorted, what do you care? Though Madhvi brushed it off, tears welled up in her eyes. Chandra was generally a kind woman, but since Babu Radhacharan had resigned from his job for the sake of social service, she had developed a certain disdain for Balaji's name. She couldn't say anything to Varjan, but she often teased Madhavi. Varjan, glaring at Chandra, gently said to Madhavi, go, take out another sari from the chest. Put this one away. Oh dear, you've hurt your hands badly. Madhavi said, we'll be late, I'll go like this. Virjan reassured her, no, there's more than an hour left. Saying this, Varjan lovingly washed Madhavi's hands, braided her hair, dressed her in a beautiful sari, draped a shawl over her shoulders, embraced her, and with tearful eyes, said, sister, be strong, don't lose hope. Madhavi smiled and said, stay with me, keep me steady. I don't trust my own heart. Virjan realized that today, love had crossed into the realm of madness, and perhaps this was its peak. Yes, this crazy girl is building a wall of sand. After a while, Varjan, Madhavi, Sevati, Chandra, and other women headed to Suvama's house. They were astonished by the preparations there. A large canopy was set up at the door, adorned with mirrors and various decorative items. Congratulations were being sung. Large baskets of sweets and dry fruits were placed all around. The city's notable people, dressed in their finest clothes, stood ready to welcome him. Not a single carriage or coach could be seen because Balaji always traveled on foot. Many people were seen carrying bags around their necks, filled with money to offer to Balaji. King Dharmasinha's 5 sons, dressed in colorful attire, with saffron turbans and silk flags tucked into their belts, were blowing bugles. As soon as the people spotted Virjan, thousands of heads bowed in respect. When these ladies entered the house, even the courtyard and the hall were decorated as if for a newly arrived bride. Hundreds of women sat ready to sing auspicious songs. Piles of flowers were scattered everywhere. Suwama, dressed in a white sari, stood at the door, the embodiment of peace and contentment. Upon seeing Virjan and Madhavi, her eyes filled with tears. Virjan said, "Aunt, today is a blessed day for this house." Suwama, weeping, replied, "It's because of you that I have the fortune to see this day. May God reward you." This blessing came from the depths of a grieving mother's heart. A mother's curse once led King Dasharatha to the sorrow of losing his son and tasting death. Would Suwama's blessing go unheard? As they were talking like this, the sound of bells and conch shells began to fill the air. The commotion spread that Balaji had arrived. The women began singing auspicious songs. Madhavi took the Aarti plate and stood at the gate, eagerly looking down the road. Soon, a group of young men dressed in white appeared. 100 members of the Bharat Sabha were riding horses. Behind them was a vast crowd of people. The entire city had turned out. Shoulder to shoulder they stood, as if the waves of the sea were surging forward. In the midst of this crowd, Balaji's face appeared like the moon emerging from behind the clouds. A red sandalwood mark adorned his forehead, and a saffron-colored shawl draped his neck. Suwama stood at the door, and as soon as she saw Balaji, she lost all composure. She stepped out, her head bowed, and with tears streaming from her eyes like a garland of pearls, she walked toward Balaji. Today, she had found her lost son. She was desperate to embrace him. Seeing Suwama approach like this, the crowd came to a halt. It seemed as if a goddess had descended from the sky. A silence fell over the crowd. Balaji took a few steps forward, bowed before his mother, and fell at her feet. Suwama took his head in her arms. Today, she had found her lost son and was showering him with the pearls from her eyes. The sight of this emotional reunion filled the hearts of the people with a sense of national pride. 50,000 voices rose up in unison, "Victory to Balaji." The heavens thundered, and a shower of flowers rained down from all sides. Then the roar was heard again, "Victory to Munshi Shaligram." Thousands of people, intoxicated with patriotism, rushed forward, eager to touch Suwama's feet and apply the dust from them to their foreheads. Suwama was as intoxicated by these cheers as a cobra is by the sound of the flute. Today, she had found her lost son. This priceless gem had made her a queen. Because of this gem, today the dust from her feet had become the ointment for people's eyes and the sacred mark for their foreheads. It was an extraordinary sight. Again and again, cries of victory rose, carrying the message of India's awakening to the heavens. The mother was holding her son close to her heart. After so many years, she had found the lost son who was the pride of her life. Flowers were being showered from all sides. Gold and jewels were raining down. The mother and son were submerged waist deep in a sea of flowers. Who could have witnessed such a powerful scene? Suwama, holding Balaji's hand, began to lead him toward the house. As they reached the door, the women began singing auspicious songs, and Madhavi, holding a golden plate filled with lambs and flowers, performed the Aarti. Virjan placed a garland of flowers stained with Madhavi's blood around Balaji's neck. With tear-filled eyes, Balaji bowed to Virjan. Madhavi had longed so much for Balaji's darshan. But now, at this moment, her eyes were cast downward. She could not look at Balaji. She feared that her eyes would betray the secrets of her heart. They were filled with the nectar of love. Until now, her greatest desire had been to see Balaji. But today, for the first time, new desires were born in Madhavi's heart. Today, desires had stirred, but not to be fulfilled. Today, a new bud had blossomed in the garden of desires, but not to bloom, rather to wither, to be crushed into the soil. Who would explain to Madhvi that she should not allow these desires to grow in her heart? These desires would make her weep greatly. Her love was imaginary. She was familiar with its taste. Did she now want to taste the flavor of true love?